Well. Look who it is. Hi. My name is Alex, and welcome to my video. There's a poodle just a few feet away from me who is making her bed, so if you hear that, I apologize. We have both just come in from the rain. It's early, it's 7 in the morning, and it's been raining all night. I've got this really worn out book with me, The History of Philosophy by A.C. Grayling, and this is really just our jumping off point for the video, and it just makes really great sounds. I've also got this other book here with me that I'm currently reading. I showed this off in a book haul that I did. The cover has fallen off, but it's from Socrates to Sartre. And it's pretty old. It smells old. And it's got these old pages that smell like earth. I'm planning a video where I use these books to teach myself philosophy. Because I am out of college. I'm out of college. To ramble a little bit about college and philosophy, I've got a coffee right here. Classic. College introduces many to coffee. If you weren't introduced to it in high school, I've met people who were drinking coffee in middle school, which I think is out of control. Out of control, for the record. I don't know if you knew, energy drink people. I knew people from high school who were just already on, Monster energy drinks. But, at the time, I judged it pretty hard because what are you doing? You're 16 years old, you're 17, why do you need coffee? But now I'm remembering that we had to get up at 6 in the morning. We were at school at 7:45. Of course, kids are gonna be needing Monster Energy because everyone went to bed late to do homework. Or play video games, right? Whatever. So, I was a philosophy major for maybe 2 semesters in college before I switched to film, which is classic. And I made the move because I didn't like philosophy. I did not like that program. I didn't enjoy it. But even today, I like reading philosophy books. But in college, I did not like it. I'm going to talk about why. I want to talk a little bit about creativity and intellectualism and the aesthetics of intellectualism. I will start off by saying that I applied to my big state school, which is the University of Texas at Austin. A massive school. And I didn't get in from high school. They rejected me, so I didn't go. And I went to a small private university instead. I ended up going to UT, but I spent a couple of years at this small school and I got all my basics and I got my credits going. Then I reapplied to UT, and I was able to prove myself, and I was able to get in. They rejected me the first time because I was really tanking in high school, and I got in a program for students who are at risk of not going to college academically. So I got in this program. It was an early college program, and it completely turned my trajectory around. I went from making C's. I even failed a class. I failed a state exam for math and had to retake it. I went from failing and making C's and like at most like an A in art, that was it, to making an A in pre-calculus, making A in history, A in English. Like, I was a straight A student for the last 2 years of high school because of this program. It made me fall in love with reading academically. It made me fall in love with history. And I realized that I enjoyed thinking and I liked writing. So, but because of that, 2 years of being a poor student and 2 years of being a good student, I didn't get into the college that I wanted. And that small private university took a chance on me, and they let me in, and I was able to go to school. When I picked philosophy, I never studied it in high school. It was never covered. I never really read anything like from Plato or the Greeks and that type of thing. When I got to college and chose to study philosophy, I was shocked, let me tell you. Have you read The Secret History by Donna Tartt? I love that book, and it describes an insular, small, intellectual ring of personality freaks. And that's exactly what I encountered. And I was talking to someone else who went to a small private school up in the Northeast, I think. Like a famous small liberal arts college. And they said the same thing to me. They were like, I love that book because it describes the cultish nature of that school. And I was like, same. Absolute same. It's something else to encounter. The philosophy department was really small, tiny, and there was only 5 professors who taught all of the classes, and it was me and like a few stragglers, like weirdos who didn't say anything in class and kind of sat in the back. And then there was about 5 students in this like inner ring, this really solid inner ring, who were incredibly obnoxious. And I was just surprised. I think I was really surprised. It was like, instead of thinking openly and creatively, it was a race to be the most pompous you could possibly be. And it was like, whose turtleneck was the highest. One guy, I'm not joking with you, there was a class, he sat in the very front, he had a ceramic mug, everyone else had like to-go containers from like the cafeteria. He had a ceramic mug and a French press, I'm not joking, and he French pressed himself a coffee and poured it in a ceramic mug, and he would sit in like all black, like a black turtleneck, I'm not joking. Instead of you, the professor, right? Instead of facing you, the professor, the rest of the class is behind, he would sit at an angle and he would look at the professor from like the side of his face, like this, and talk. And then if somebody had something to say behind him, he would lean back and kind of glance like, He kind of like just a freak, just like the weirdest affect. What a performance. Every day was like Shakespeare's theater of buffoonery, and like it'd be an ethics class, it'd be something just like basic where it's full of students just trying to get a credit, and then there'd be this guy, like, he called his, anyway, this is gossip, but he called one of his papers his magnum opus. His magnum opus. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, quite frankly. And there was someone in the class who was really quiet, and they were this kind of androgynous person. I don't really know much about them. We had to swap papers one time, and I swapped papers with this person, and I read, and it was so thoughtful and so well done. We had to pick like an ethical topic, and I think they picked something to do with housing and like the housing block, like kind of Soviet era block housing, and used it as this metaphor. I don't know, but I read it and it was really well done. And this person who never spoke was sitting there and taking it all in and just really thoughtful, but thinking in their head. And there wasn't this performance of being smart, of being aesthetic. They were just a person. They wore like athleisure too. They didn't wear. It's important to know, like at this school, there's like one building that looked old, and it was really old. And I swear, just in the winter, like the Harry Potter scarves would come out, and I liked dressing, like living the fantasy of college too. I loved it. I was wearing sweaters. This person was into athletics and played sports, I believe, and would dress like it, like you wouldn't know. But they were a philosophy major, and they were really, really smart. That was one of my kind of first encounters, where I learned to kind of decouple intelligence from like the appearance of intelligence. And because I was straight out of high school, and it had only been 2 years in high school of caring at all about anything to do with books, anything to do with learning, I used to not care at all. So it was like I was very young, and I was like getting used to all this, and I was almost a little bit impressed by those philosophy students at first, and then the bubble was burst. It was shattered, because the real smart people, they looked like whatever. It didn't matter. When I got to UT, I transferred, right? I'd made all A's at this small school, this private school. I played the game, I wrote my papers, I read, and I made all A's. Then I got to UT, and let me tell you, that was what really affirmed what I was already realizing. That was my first time being around really, really academically smart people. I had to retake a logic class that didn't transfer, right? I took logic at this small school, and it was so easy. I loved it. It was like math, but for words. And I went to UT, and I took this class again, and I bombed it. It was so hard. UT was so hard. And not only that, the new students, the front row students who raised their hands for everything, it was no joke. It was not a performance. It was just they knew the answer, and they were wearing like stuff from Target like they weren't. There was no French press to be seen. There was no ceramic coffee mug. It was like somebody with like a Panda Express lunch just blowing us out of the water. I've kind of let go since then. I just realized really quickly when I left philosophy, I just realized that wasn't for me. That kind of stage to perform intellectualism wasn't for me. And I ended up, going into film and learning a little bit more hardware, like learning equipment, and then later animation software and editing software, and I really like that. But I haven't lost a love for the content or the act of philosophy. I just do not care at all for the performance of intellectualism that can come with it. Something interesting has happened since that kind of microcosmic moment. Oh, I have to tell you about this story though, really quickly, before I move on to, I want to talk about TikTok and intellectual aesthetics like academia, dark academia, that type of thing. But I want to talk about this moment I had at that private school. I got invited because I was on the dean's list and philosophy was my program. I got invited to a dean's lunch. Come have lunch with the dean. And it was in this old hall, and I walked in and there was 2 tables for the philosophy program, 2 little circular tables, and one of the tables was empty, no one was sitting there, and the other one had those 5 students, those ones who were kind of a close-knit ring, who would dress and look the part of the philosopher. And I don't know what was wrong with me, but I didn't think anything of it. I walked up to the table and I asked if I could sit with them, and they said, one of them said yes, the other ones looked at me. So I sat down and we got our lunches, and they were talking about people I didn't know, things I didn't know, clearly just inside history. There was one really nice guy who sat next to me who would kind of lean over and translate and say, oh, they're talking about this person, they're talking about this person. I will never forget him. I don't remember his name, but I will never forget how nice he was to me. And the rest completely ignored me. And there was this moment, it got kind of quiet. It got, a little lull. And I had just read something that day that like Leonardo da Vinci had invented this instrument, which was like a harp and a piano combined. I don't know what took over me, but I just like, hey, did you hear the news? Did you see the news? That Leonardo da Vinci had invented an instrument and it's part harp, part piano? That's pretty wild. Nobody said anything. Nothing. This is the one time in my whole life, thankfully, that this has happened to me. When somebody did speak, it was a completely different topic, and then the whole table joined in, and the boat took off without me. The boat took off with me standing on the dock, watching. It was the strangest, like, you could not penetrate this group from the outside. They would not let you. To this day, I tell people I think that's my most embarrassing moment. It's just like being really excited about this instrument. I don't know why I thought I could sit with them. It was also college. I think I just thought that was over. I didn't realize Anyway, I don't know where they all are now. I just think it's interesting. But that was kind of the culture. It was like really off-putting and really weird. I don't know. Anyway, I kind of like that memory. It makes me laugh. Just what I chose to interject with was like the randomest thing. But what else? Yes, so I want to mention like a way I encounter this outside of college is through this aesthetic thing that's happening on the internet, where like I saw a TikTok. I'll try and include a screenshot of it, but it's essentially in the book world, like people looking down on it, this author Colleen Hoover for writing this kind of basic stuff, and instead being like, yeah, you know, I read Sylvia Plath and Dostoevsky and I find that so unnecessary. I really do. I read in Sartre's autobiography that he would posture by reading more respected classic literature, but in reality his favorite things to read were like trash detective novels that he would, like, his mom would buy him, and like his grandfather would get so angry that he was reading that garbage, but his mom would buy them for him anyway, and he loved them. Like, of course. We're human beings. I don't understand. If you read Dostoevsky and you love that, that's wonderful. If you read only that and you just have never enjoyed like Harry Potter or, I don't know, like a mystery book, we don't have things in common. We just don't have that in common. And I've seen it so many times, like this conflation of reading something intellectual, wearing something intellectual looking, or being in an intellectual space somehow equals being intellectual, and it does not. All this to say that I've seen kind of that clique that I encountered in college. I see the ghost of them everywhere, and I see it in social media, and I see it in people who kind of gatekeep philosophy, or they gatekeep the topics, and I've had so much more success and luck just reading books outside of college. And so when I switched to film, I just stayed in touch with philosophy through reading and through YouTube, watching videos. And then I just think all the time, and I love thinking. It's natural, you know? Like, it's not hard, it's just not hard. Like, this blanket behind me is gray, and this microphone is silver. They both have this silvery color. Creativity and the intellectual happens in what these things have in common and how they're different, and how I'm conceptualizing them both in a kind of like cognitive map that's highly personal and has nothing to do with what you're wearing, if you're in school or not, and that type of thing. So I flirted briefly with kind of romantic academic conceptions of intelligence, and it was annoying. It got annoying so quick. My recommendation to anyone is just, let go of that. I mean, we all love a nice, beautiful cathedral. Architecture is important, and it conveys emotional value. Fashion is important, and it demonstrates our value and maybe even where we come from and what we prioritize. It can reveal hobbies in the case of like athleisure or comfort, or just the style of the time. It can reveal us as highly individualistic, or what music we listen to, blah blah blah. Aesthetics are important, but when they are upheld as like rules of intelligence, that's where I really have a problem. unfortunately, that's what I encountered in college. Was a little bit of that. But this book, The History of Philosophy, this thing is for everyone. Especially this one, From Socrates to Sartre, is for anybody. Anybody can read this. And it's really interesting. I have longer videos planned that I'm kind of writing for, but kind of in the process of that. Some of those videos involve these books. In the process of that, though, I kind of wanted to stop and make a more casual background video where just rambling about my thoughts on intellectual aesthetics, and ultimately there's this line where you have to stop, and aesthetics kind of help something that you're already doing. They are not the thing itself, it is an aesthetic of the thing. So, you can be intellectual and smart and creative, and you can have any job and look any way and go to school or not, and read Colleen Hoover. You can read that. That's okay. So, the gatekeeping is annoying, but, philosophy is full of that. I hope it wouldn't discourage anyone, but specifically young people who are in college, especially they're from a small town, they go to a big old school, or they go to a very, rich little private school, and it's easy to feel left out, Anyhow. The sun is starting to come up, and that poodle is fast asleep. So, I hope you have enjoyed this little ramble about college, philosophy, intellectualism, and stay tuned for more videos featuring these crinkly books.